Welcome to the 10 Commandment Series. This is part 4. We will be going over the 4th commandment. Feel free to circle back and watch parts 1 through 3 if you haven't watched them. All right, let's get into the next one. Exodus chapter 20 verse 8 says, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy." That word holy there means set apart. And Sabbath is the 7th day of the week. The week starts on Sunday and it ends on Saturday. So this word Sabbath here, which represents Saturday, the 7th day of the week, if you look at the Hebrew word Shabbath and you break it down, Shah means teeth, eat, consume. Ba means house, family, inn. Tha means mark, sign, covenant. In essence, the Sabbath means to consume, eat, family in the covenant. Okay? Another way you could say it is like this. It's a time to feed on the covenant that Yah made with his people. That's the sign or the mark between Yah and his people forever. And we're going to prove that forever statement with the scriptures. So a little more breakdown on this word Sabbath in the scriptures. When you click on that word Sabbath, it derives from another word, but we're going to look at the usage of it for this word first. It says Sabbath, Day of Atonement, Sabbath year, week, produce, and Sabbath year. And it derives from another word, 7673. Let's click on that and see what it says. So when you click on 7673, it means to cease, to desist, rest. See that? See that word rest? It also means to rest or desist from labor, meaning you should rest from your labor. Okay? Put an end to your labor that day. Okay? Look at the very bottom one, to keep or observe the Sabbath. So as we expound on a few scriptures, it's really simple. In the Old and the New Testament, you're going to see that people rested, they gathered together, they prayed, they preached, they worshiped Yahweh, they taught, and they heard the word on the Sabbath day. They also studied on the Sabbath day because it was the day that they set apart. That word holy means to set apart, to make it Kadesh, to set it apart. So they set that day apart. This day was set apart from the rest of the 6 days. And on this day, they worship Yah through gathering together, through studying, through praying, through teaching his word. That's what they were doing. And it's still relevant today. The Sabbath is on Saturday. It is not on Sunday. Later on in time, they tried to switch it out and make it Sunday, but they don't have the authority to change Yah's word. Yah's word is forever settled in heaven. No one has the authority to change his word, and he's consistent, and he's the same, and he does not change. So the Sabbath has always been on Saturday. Saying that it's on Sunday is a misinterpretation and a flat out lie. All right, so let's go back to Exodus 20, starting at verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, to keep it set apart, to consecrate it. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. You see this word work right here, where he says 6 days shall you labor and do all your work. That word work in Hebrew means work, business, occupation. It also means public business. So not only should you rest from your job and the things you do for your business, but it's also the engagement of public business. So therefore, avoid buying and selling on the Sabbath day because it's a heart issue and you should set that day aside for worshiping Yah because it's a sign between him and his people. So work is a two-way street. It's your job and the business you engage in. See that? Plain as day. Look at verse 10. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahweh, your Elohim. In it you shall do no work. You, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. Then Yahweh goes on to elaborate for the children of Israel. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. So let's take a look at what is on the mind of Yah when it comes to the Sabbath and the children of Israel. And we can prove that Yahweh established this with his people forever. Let's go to Exodus chapter 31, verses 16 through 17. It says, therefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations as a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. 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 For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. See that? He said it was forever. Now let's take a look at this word sign, and then we're going to see what this word sign means. The word sign derives from H225, but let's take a look at it right here at face value. It means sign, signal, distinguishing mark, banner, remembrance, miraculous sign. See that? To name a few. Token, ensign, standard, miracle, proof. So Yah is saying that the Sabbath is a sign and a distinguishing mark and a remembrance between him and the children of Israel forever. That's how you know who his people are. One of the ways is because his people are keeping the Sabbath. And that's why he told them to remember it, because a lot of his people forgot about it. So once they wake up to who they are, repent, and keep the commandments, they are to go back to the covenant. They are to go back to the commandments. And one of the commandments is remember the Sabbath and keep it set apart. And that is the distinguishing mark. That is the sign. That's Yah's mark between him and his people and the ones that choose to cling to his people. That's a lesson for another day as well, but it's plain as day. Now let's see where it derives from. It derives from to consent, to agree. See that? Properly to come, implied to assent, consent. This is what the children of Israel, the children of Yashara'al, this sign, this mark, this covenant, this Sabbath, was a mark or a sign to the children of Israel between Yah and the children of Israel forever, and it was agreed upon. It was consented to. Let's look at some New Testament examples of the Messiah himself keeping the Sabbath, his believers, his followers, his apostles, his prophets also keeping the Sabbath. Let's take a look. Let's look at what Yahushua did in Luke chapter 4, verse 16. So he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day. On the Sabbath day. On the Sabbath day. And stood up to read And he was handed the book of the prophet Isaiah. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written. And then he goes on to read what it says. Because that's what he did. He even kept the Sabbath. And if he's our example and he kept the Sabbath, we ought to keep the Sabbath. And we're going to watch his believers after the death, burial, and resurrection of the Messiah. We're going to see the believers still keeping the Sabbath, following his example. Let's take a look at the believers keeping the Sabbath day after the Messiah's resurrection to prove this wasn't done away with. Acts chapter 13, starting at verse 42. And when the Jews, or the Yahwahdai, or some say Yahudim, and when the Jews were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles besought that these words might be preached to them the next Sabbath. Now when the congregation was broken up, many of the Jews and religious proselytes followed Paul and Barnabas, who, speaking to them, persuaded them to continue in the grace of Allahayim, in the grace of Yah. Now take a look at the slam dunk verse of Acts 13 verse 44, which confirms the commandments in Exodus 20 and confirms that it's Old and New Testament and it's one theme and it hasn't changed. Look at verse 44. Look at Acts 13:44. And the next Sabbath day came almost the whole city together to hear the word of Allahayim. See that? It says the next Sabbath day. The city came together. Almost the whole city came together to hear the word of Yah on the Sabbath day. On the Sabbath day. That's when they gathered to hear the word being taught. People rested, gathered together, prayed, preached, worshiped Yahweh, taught, and heard the word on the Sabbath day. You can clearly see that in the Old Testament, the New Testament, after the Messiah was raised from the dead, it hasn't changed. Even the Messiah kept the Sabbath. Let's take a look at some examples of different languages around the world and how they say Saturday in their language. This will clearly let you know that Saturday, aka the Shabbat, aka the Shabbath, is the seventh day of the week. So we know in modern Hebrew, Shabbat or Shabbath. Let's run through a few. English, Saturday. Arabic, Sabbath. Armenian, Shabbat. Let's drop down to Portuguese, Sábado. Russian, Subota. Spanish, Sábado. Sudanese, Saptu, Subota. And Ukrainian. And the list goes on and on. So remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. The Sabbath is on Saturday. It's never changed. It's always been on Saturday. But set apart that seventh day for Yah. It is a heart issue. Ask yourself, where is your heart? And if you don't want to do what he's commanded, ask yourself, why am I rebelling against the Most High? Why am I rebelling against the Creator? He told me to do something and I don't want to do it, and I twist the scriptures to try to justify why I do not. That's a heart issue. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Until next time.